In this deck tech video for Bruse and Thrasios, we're gonna dig deep into how they are performing, but also try to find cards that would be recommended, as Bruse and Thrasios have been requested, but also take a look on the development of that commander pair over time. And if you have any wishes of request for this kind of video, feel free to leave that comment in the description below of the video of what commander I should try to look into next. But also specific cards you might be interested in regarding that specific commander as well. But let's begin by looking at the average win rate of 21.85. Now, just looking at the win rate like that doesn't mean anything, you have to put it in perspective. Yuriko is sitting on 22.11, Venota is quite low on 15.88, Tayem 25.30, Nayela 24.7, and Malcolm Timna 23, Korvold 18, Kinnan 24, Gitrog 15, Dihada 19. And Atraxa is currently the commander with the highest win rate that I've currently found on 27.14. So that should give you some perspective of what that 21.85 means in a leaderboard. But like I showed you previously, we can dig deeper and look at individual cards instead. So we have the grand total of 114 decks played that I've looked at, and here we have 42 decks that are playing Endurance, and when I calculate the average win rate, I get a 24.27 average win rate. And this would suggest that this is a recommended card that would be good to play inside Bruse and Thras. And as Wargate was requested, here it sadly is. So we have a really high inclusion rate of 71.9%. Basically, 82 decks are playing it, and it's sitting on a 20.52 average win rate. And we're gonna get back to this specific card later in the video because I do think I want to talk about it. However, if you actually look at the average win rate, compare it to the win rate with Wargate, we can see that just next to that win rate you see minus 1.33. That's the difference. I've added that. Something you requested. See? You guys' feedback and comments are being part in updating this video format. But let's get on with the video. I want to analyze why that average win rate is a little bit bad compared to other commanders. Let's begin by taking a look at auto includes, cards that are being played 100% inclusion rate in all 114 decks. Here we have Deflecting Sword, Mana Crypt, Command Tower, Psychrift, Worldly Tutor, Silence, Final Devastation, Eldritch Evolution, Rhystic Study, Fierce Guardianship, Mystic Remora, Boseiju, Force of Will, Noble Hierarch, and Chromox. There were other few lands like Mystic Rainforest that were also there, but I kinda cut those. But the picture that we're getting here is something of a toolboxy, creature-orientated deck, because we're seeing a few tutors for creatures, we're seeing a few value engines like Rhystic Study and Mystic Remora, and we're seeing a few counter spells like Force, Psychrift, Fierce, and Fierce Guardianship. But we can dig deeper into combo choice. Here we have 102 decks, an inclusion rate of 89.5 that have gone for the Kinnan Basalt combo that generates infinite mana, and with infinite mana you win with Thrasios. Now the win rate is in red, which means that it's lower than the total average of all Bruse Thras average win rate together. On the other hand, it's like 0.4 difference, so I'm gonna say it's pretty close to the average. In other words, if you're playing Basalt Kinnan, you're going to get something equal to the average win rate. Another combo that is very popular is Devoted Druid and Swift Reconfiguration. This is also actually getting a worse win rate compared to the average. 90 decks are playing it, so we have a pretty high sample size of decks containing both, basically. However, I would like to say that it's pretty close to the average. It's like 0.8% difference. But we can also do it in the combination of 3 cards. So for example, we have 12 decks that have all included Brain Freeze, Lion's Eye Diamond, and Unwool Breach together. And I did also look at them individually, like Brain Freeze, 12 decks, Unwool Breach, also 12 decks, and Lion's Eye Diamond, also exactly 12 decks. So when one of them have been played, all 3 of them have been played together. Now the sample size is actually still quite low, but if you look at their performance, it's not great. 15.69%. Now the first conclusion I actually drew from this was that there have been a development. Theoretically, this is one of the best combos you can currently go for inside the current format. Turbo Grixis is good, and this is something similar to Turbo Grixis. But the color identity of Sans Black, the Bruse thras, aren't really great currently. So my theory was that the average win rate for Bruse thras is just going down as they are very bad at performing this kind of combo. Even though they're going for a great combo theoretically, they're still decreasing their win rate over time. You see, when you look at this kind of statistics here, you're seeing from the start point to the end point. So maybe the win rate was better initially when Bruse thras came, and it's been dropping steadily since then. This was a very easy question to actually answer. Here we are at Bruse Thrasios and all the decks that have entered into various tournaments. And if we go here, and if we select this, and actually tap it like that. No, let's do it like this. We're getting the most recent tournaments up here. So if you scroll down all the way to the bottom, this is the first entry, the first time Bruse thras entered into tournament in Punt City, and Silicon Dynasty 2 is the most recent one. However, if you take a look at this deck list, and if we scroll down to enchantments, we're noticing that we don't have a single Underworld Breach here. Among artifacts, we don't have Lion's Eye Diamond, and in instance, we don't have Brain Freeze. If you scroll up and look at what they actually play, Emil the Blessed, Dockside, Derevi, Syrda, Kinnan, Emil, and no devoted... Yep, there's the devoted Druid, scrolling down to enchantments, Swift Reconfiguration. So this kind of and Wargate too, by the way. But this kind of breaks my theory that we have been starting to play Underworld Breach most recently, and because Bruse thras have been steadily decreasing the win rate, it kind of breaks that hypothesis. If we go back to here, Bonefire, another quite performing good result, 2 wins, 3 losses and 1 draw from Tyler. We're seeing something of the exact same thing. So Drevi, Syrda, Dockside, Emil, Seedborn, Devoted Druid, Kinnan, Basalt. Where is the Grim Monolith? I don't see a Grim... Maybe I'm blind. Sometimes I'm blind, I don't see the card, but I honestly don't see the Grim Monolith. So Syrda is a good combination with the Grim Monolith, but apparently the guy is not playing that still. No Underworld Breach, and there's the Swift Reconfiguration. So maybe the conclusion is that this is not a good fit for the Bruse Thrasios. Maybe this kind of combo doesn't flow that well for it. Now if we look at the combination of Derevi, Emil, Devoted Druid, which is a little bit of a mixture combo here, we're seeing some pretty decent results. Now we have 34 decks, including this combination, and we're seeing an average win rate of 24.12. If we're swapping out Emil and looking at Swift Reconfiguration, Devoted Druid and Derevi, we're still seeing the same result. But if we jump back to an older picture, where we're looking at only the inclusion of Devoted Druid and Swift Reconfiguration, we're still seeing a pretty bad result. But look at the play inclusion sample size. As you can see here, we have a 78.9 inclusion rate, but when we skew it more down and include things like Derevi and the entire Derevi package, we're seeing a much better win rate, but a smaller inclusion rate. But we have basically excluded all the decks that didn't include Derevi, but we're still including Devoted Druid and Swift Reconfiguration. So now I hope we're getting a picture of what direction we should be taking this Bruse Thrasios. But now I have a big confession to make. I have actually no idea why Derevi is inside Bruse Thrasios. You see, I'm not a Bruse Thrasios player, I'm a CSA player. Okay, I play all kinds of deck, but I don't play that much Bruse Thrasios, and when I do, I don't include the Derevi Imperial Tactician. We have more or less a 50-50 split, almost. 42.1 decks have included Derevi, and that is basically 48 decks, and those decks got a 24.24, an increase by 2.39% compared to the total average. So the card is doing good. Darevi seems to be a good suggestion for Bruse thras, something that totally surprised me. If you know why, please leave a comment below. If you're a Bruse Thrasios player and you know why Darevi is good, feel free to leave that comments below and I would love to know. I'm guessing it has something to do with Darevi Imperial Tactician and Emil and Gaia's Cradle, or one of those many Bloom Tender variants that you can have that is going to basically achieve infinite mana and equal to infinite Thrasios activations, because the decks that have included Darevi are also all including Emil the Blessed. And I mean, Darevi together with Bloom Tender makes sense, because that Bloom Tender, if you have Bruse in play or a red permanent, is gonna tap for 4. So whenever one of your creatures attack, like Bruse is actually quite good at attacking. He's double striking, or he's giving something double strike, so that's 2 potential Darevi triggers. So if you have your Thrasios, your Darevi, your Bloom Tender in play, you can actually get a lot of Thrasios activations. And we are seeing a good positive win rate by including Bloom Tender. Another card that really stood out, and we're still on the topic of Darevi here, is Mana Vault. Now this is an artifact for only 1 mana, that's amazing. It's a great ritual. However, it doesn't untap itself. However, it taps for free, so with Darevi, Mana Vault is quite good. So I can see, like, yeah, Darevi, Mana Vault, Thrasios, good stuff. We also have Ancient Tomb. Now, Darevi, Ancient Tomb, that's basically 2 colorless mana each time you connect and punch someone's face. Pretty okay, not great, but Ancient Tomb still, showcasing here, on just an individual inclusion, you have an increase of 2.8%. I should just also throw out that Gaia's Cradle and Dockside Extortionist are close to auto-includes here. Almost all decks are playing it. Another thing that I've been noticing is that counterspells have started to perform less and less. Now this has always kind of been the trend, more or less, that interaction in general isn't a great spot to be in. You wanna be fast towards your combo, and usually interaction are being used to protect yourself, making sure that you're able to win the game, so to say. But not just counterspells, but also things like Rest in Peace or stacks cards in general have all more or less started to kind of drop, because the format currently is kind of pushing you to be fast towards winning the game, more or less. Now sometimes these tricks like this snap can be used on your own dockside to recast dockside, or used on one of your opponent's creatures. But still, these spells doesn't boost the win rate that much, so to say, compared to other cards we've currently looked at. Now back to Wargate, that is dropping the win rate by including it by 1.33%. The cool thing about Wargate is that it can find any kind of permanent, not just creatures. You see, you're mostly tutoring for creatures, but in this kind of deck, Basalt and Grim are interesting because of Kinnan and Serda. Also, Swift Reconfiguration is an enchantment. So this should be a great tutor as it has multiple target options. Yet the performance for it is kind of bad. Or, well, it's not a huge drop. It's like 1.33%. So it's still pretty close to the average. I wanna add that. But if we go back here and take a look at the most recent tournament, looking at this deck list again by Yoki Dragon, shout out. He's playing a big mix of things, that Darevi Emil together with that Cradle, the Emil Dockside, and Kinnan and Basalt. And is there Grim Monolith this time? I just took it for granted when I first looked at this deck. He is not playing Grim Monolith, actually. I can't see it. I'm looking just extra because sometimes I miss it, but I don't see a Grim Monolith. Still Serda, so I'm just guessing that Serda is here to boost that Thrasios activation. Displacer Kitten together with Dockside, Devoted Druid together with Swift Reconfiguration, and that makes Wargate into a good appeal. But now, take a look at that inclusion rate. 71.9%, 82 decks were including Wargate. And if we go here to the combo package showcase, more or less, we have a very low inclusion rate, but still a pretty good win rate. Including Kinnan, Basalt and Darevi, the entire Darevi package basically is giving you a 23.59 average win rate, which is a boost to the win rate, but still a very, not a terrible low inclusion rate, but a lower inclusion rate compared to when we looked at a 2-card or 1-card combination. Darevi Surda Swift reconfiguration is getting a 23.9 win rate with an inclusion rate of 28%. Surda Devoted Druid Darevi 23.9, basically the same. And then jumping back once more, just so you see it, just a remembrance, because I really think this is the takeaway. Devoted Druid Swift reconfiguration has a much higher inclusion rate, but a lower win rate. And I think the answer is this, where the good suggestion here, the takeaway, is that you should probably try to look for overlapping combos. Just having more variance of getting towards that infinite mana and infinite Thrasios activation. And going back to Wargate once more, the inclusion rate of Wargate is enormous, but when you have included Wargate this much, you probably haven't included all the other key combo cards as well. But once again, jumping back to this picture, looking at Brain Freeze, Lion's Diamond and Underworld Breach, the typical Grixis Breach combo storm stuff, you're getting a very low win rate. And I think the takeaway as well is this. Yes, we're looking for overlapping combos here. But once again, looking at this specific deck list, all the combos, the different ones that we have included here, are kind of more or less, in some form of way, synergizing with each other. Yes, we have the Kinnan and the Basalt Monolith, but Basalt Monolith and Darevi and Thrasios are still good. So even if you don't have your Kinnan when you have your Basalt, it's still pretty fine. If you have your Kinnan, that's just usually amazing together with Thrasios. And if you have Bloom Tender Kinnan, that's great. If you have Bloom Tender Darevi Kinnan, that's great. Now if you have Emil Darevi Bloom Tender, you win. But if you don't have that, you still have Bloom Tender Darevi, good. Devoted Druid is actually pretty decent with Emil, because you can flicker it and like put counters on it to boost its mana production later. It's not great, but I'm just showcasing a tiny bit of an upgrade here. Surda and Kinnan are also pretty good to each other. So what we're kind of getting here is a lot of different combos. So we're increasing our consistency by adding more combos, but all the cards are individually good kinda on their own, but they're also synergizing together on their own. The Grixis Underworld Breach, Brain Freeze, Lion's Diamond wouldn't synergize with the kinds of combos and things I've currently showcased to you. We've already looked at this deck list that performed quite well, and that was basically identical. Let's look at this one and see if it's still the same thing. This had a 20% average win rate, and we're seeing Darevi, Bloom Tender, Spellseeker, Surda, Kinnan. Are we gonna see Underworld Breach? No, we have Swift, we have Basalt, still no Grim Monolith. I am actually curious about that. Still though, it's basically the same kind of deck, more or less. So the big takeaway is that you should try to play this kind of multiple combo Sans Black, Thrasios and Bruse that are including combos that are synergizing with Thrasios, cards that are being good individually on their own, but could also synergize between each other even though they don't combo off, and try to avoid combos that go a little bit outside the synergy here. Maybe try to include more tutors. I still think Wargate would be good, because when Wargate was heavily included, it might not have those key cards it can tutor for. Still though, I think that Bruse Thras might be struggling. We were starting to see some win rate, including Darevi, around 24%, so it's possible we can increase it by playing better versions of the deck, just trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. We shouldn't be too angry at the average win rate, however, because Bruse Thrasios is a very open commander and you can play a lot of different things in it. As we've looked at, some people were playing Underworld Breach, Brain Freeze and Lion's Diamond, and that didn't really work out. But we learned something from that. We are sacrificing the average win rate, but don't care about the average win rate. We're using the average win rate just to understand a little bit what would work better against each other. I really hope you enjoyed the video and that you got something out of it, inspired in a new form of way. I want these videos to be kinda short or as short as possible, but packed with information. Now, I calculate a lot of different data samples, and I'm trying to showcase the things that I think have an impact, are worthy to talk about. But there are a lot of data that I collect that I don't showcase. If there is anything you want to know that I didn't showcase, please, just like this, leave that in the comments below of the video, and I will find that specific data that you on an individual basis wanna know. I really hope you enjoyed this kind of video and that you got something out of it. If you have any suggestions or feedback how this video format could develop and be improved upon, feel free to leave that in the comments below of the video and I would happily read it. Take care guys, and I'll see you in the next video.